gang critic.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel A4L. My name is Lance, and today I'm going to be getting into a fascinating yet lesser known aspect of Black American history and culture, and that is of the Mardi Gras Indians. Now, it is 2 o'clock in the morning. I could not sleep, and I just got inspired to create this video. I love history, I love talking about it, and I hope that you do too if you're watching. I do tend to get really nervous when I make these videos, just in general. I stutter. I'm still trying to get comfortable with doing the whole YouTube thing. So I hope that I can just get through this in one take and I don't mess up too much. And I just overall hope you enjoy this video and that you learn something. So let's go ahead and get into it. I don't think too many people know about the Mardi Gras Indians or have ever heard of them. So I'm going to get into who they are, what it is they do, and how they came to be. So the Mardi Gras Indians are collectively made up of different tribes across New Orleans, Louisiana. And they are relevers, meaning that they parade around the city, they dance, they play music, they have chants, and they do this for events like Mardi Gras, Second Lines, and one of their biggest events is Super Sunday, which is a culmination type event for Mardi Gras. It's one of their most notable. Now, this tradition was started by Black American men, African American men. I use the two terms interchangeably, but you're always going to know who I'm referring to when I say either. And so, yeah, it's historically men that participated in this tradition. However, today there are more women that have entered the tradition and are Mardi Gras Indians as well. Y'all forgive me. Now, let's go ahead and get into the brief history of how this rich tradition came to be. I like to keep videos short and succinct, but I'm definitely more than willing to go more in depth if that is something that you would like to see. So, starting in about the early 1700s in Louisiana, runaway slaves were fleeing the atrocities of slavery into the bayous of Louisiana. And now, when they fled, they came in contact with indigenous Americans who were actually willing to help them and protect them from slavery and keep them safe. Now, this is a very unique phenomenon when we look at American history and the relationships between Africans and Native Americans. A lot of times we like to romanticize them, but when you really look at it, a lot of those big major tribes were actually enslaving Black Americans and unfortunately adopting some of those, I'll just say it, racist cultural norms. So Louisiana was a very unique place during this time in history, just because we saw certain cultural interactions and mixings that we just didn't see anywhere else in the country. Now, what also made this phenomenon very unique is that there were already cultural similarities between Indigenous and African Americans, especially when we talk about spiritual philosophy and certain traditions to honor their spiritual practices. Now, when we look at these relevers, these Mardi Gras Indians, you know, we see the feathers, we see the headdresses, and then we hear the name Indian. So naturally, we tend to give all the credit to the indigenous Americans and think that the tradition, excuse me, came from them solely. However, when we look a little bit deeper, we'll actually see that West and Central Africans, and in other words, the different ethnic groups that make up our ancestry as Black Americans, we already had a culture and tradition of masquerading. So when we look at the Mardi Gras Indian tradition today, we can see it not only as a commemoration and honoring of the contributions of those Indigenous Americans in them safekeeping us during slavery in Louisiana, but we can also see it as memory of our own cultural practices and heritage and traditions as an African people with a history that predates slavery. Now, due to segregation in New Orleans, Black residents were not able to participate in Mardi Gras celebrations to the fullest extent. And of course, segregation is nothing nice. It was nothing peaceful. But on the bright side, it did allow the tradition to be preserved within Black communities in historically Black neighborhoods in New Orleans. And it's these neighborhoods, the streets in them, in the different wards in New Orleans, um, is how the Mardi Gras Indians got their name. So the names of the Mardi Gras Indians, the different tribes, are derived from New Orleans neighborhoods, streets, and wards. Just so hope that makes sense. And then another big part of this cultural tradition, and perhaps the most well known and visual part, is the beautiful, elaborate, and vibrant suits that the Indians wear. So these suits consist of headdresses, dickies, and aprons. And they're decorated with beads and jewels and feathers and have very colorful imagery that is actually very intricate and deep, and it carries historical meaning when you really look at them. And it's also not uncommon for the Indians to have on face paint as well. Now, specifically with the headdresses that are worn, these are only to be worn by the big chief, which is the highest rank that you can have within a tribe. And this is a very similar, if not exact, structure to indigenous tribes that we see here in America. And believe it or not, the crowns that they wear can weigh up to 100 pounds, and a single suit can cost tens of $1,000s to make and can easily take up to a year. And it's very standard for suits to take several months and for the creator of the suit to spend several hours a day working on it. So these are very intricate things to create, and it's very much a work of art. It's very much a skill, and it's incredible. And another unique thing about these suits is that they're never actually worn twice. And this actually dates back to a history in where when these suits were originally being created, they were created from materials that would decompose and rot and stink. So they would usually wear them and then just burn them after. Today, the Indian will usually keep his or her suit in their home or they'll donate it to a museum. Now, when these tribes get together for these different events, what they'll do is sing songs, they'll dance, and they'll pretty much compete with one another to one up each other and show off who has the most flamboyant suit. And this is a much different history from the past because before, when they used to get together, there would often be fights and it would be really rowdy. Now, the Mardi Gras Indian events are a lot more family friendly of a gathering. Also, too, the Mardi Gras Indian chants are in a call and response form. So again, this is another tradition that comes from Africa. And if you notice from a previous video I created, the gospel Black American music video, you know that call and response is also a feature that's in gospel music. So I just think it's amazing how when you really look at Black American culture and pay attention, you can see a lot of connections to Africa, and you can still see that memory and that cultural retention there. And I think that's just amazing. Another thing too is that these chants have also been incorporated into bounce music, which is the genre of rap music that originated from New Orleans. And that is really all I have for this video today. I just wanted to come with a brief history of the Mardi Gras Indians. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Even though I'm not actually seeing you, but yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.